It's time for America Outdoors Radio, the show that covers the outdoor scene across the U.S. of A. and the entire continent. Fishing, hunting, conservation, outdoor recreation, and great destinations. We cover it all every week. It's your country, your outdoors. Let's explore it together with your host, John Kruse.
We kick off our broadcast today, welcoming some more stations on board from Geneva and Auburn, New York. You can now hear us on WAUB AM 1590 and FM 98.1, as well as WGVA AM 1240 and FM 96.1 Saturday mornings from 9 to 10 a.m. Our thanks to Finger Lakes Broadcasting for bringing us on board. We appreciate it. As a matter of fact, we've had some incredible growth since the new year and are now airing on 59 stations in 15 states around the country. I guess that means there is a hunger for the menu of fishing, hunting, and the shooting sports, as well as the conservation we offer every week, and we're glad that you're dining with us today here on the air. This whole New York edition must have been heaven sent, because two things happened on the same day this week. First, I received an email from Ted Baker at Finger Lakes Broadcasting saying he wanted to bring us on board for his New York listeners, and then just an hour later, I got an email about a Kickstarter campaign for a new ultralight fishing kayak called the Outcast, which just happens to have been developed and is being manufactured by a company in New York called Up the Creek Paddle Works. They're located in Rochester, just a short drive away from where our new listeners live. It's funny how life works. Sticking with this kayak story, I'm really excited about this. You see, I just sold my old, reliable Sherman tank of a Coleman canoe last summer. I used it all the time when we lived next to a small 34-acre lake full of bass and panfish. But after we moved from the lake, the canoe didn't see the water for 5 years. The reason? It's a stout beast, and it takes two strong men to heft it up on top of a pickup canopy and tie it down. With my son off to college, that left me alone to get that canoe up there, and that wasn't going to happen with a whole lot of success. So the canoe went on the sales block, and with that heavy canoe gone, I started looking for a lightweight fishing kayak that I could muscle up on top of my truck by myself. Much to my surprise, I found the vast majority of these kayaks are not light, and some of them actually weighed nearly 40 pounds more than that heavy canoe. So when I found out about the Outcast, with models weighing less than 40 pounds and some even less than 30 pounds, I was stoked to share this with you, and that's why you'll be hearing from Michael Duffy today with Up the Creek Paddle Works, who's going to tell you all about this innovative new watercraft built for the solo angler, and they've got a Kickstarter campaign to help roll it out. What else do we have for you this week? How about some Tennessee bass fishing? Rumor has it you can catch some pretty big smallmouth and largemouth bass as well as crappie in the Volunteer State this time of year. That's why we'll be checking in with Steve Kite, the owner of Chattanooga Fishing Guides, and you can expect to hear an honest, no-bull fishing report when he joins us on the air. This is the time of year to plan an adventure, and one such trip that may be on your bucket list is to go to Alaska for a do-it-yourself fishing, hunting, or just taking in the last frontier experience. You can certainly make the long drive there. There are people that do that, or you can fly there. That's what most people do. But did you know you can take a ferry there too from Washington State? It's true. And you can bring your car, your truck, your RV, your kayak, or your bicycle with you to explore a huge swath of this state you'd never be able to see if you drove there through Canada. Danielle Doyle, who works with the state of Alaska to promote travel along their marine highway, will tell you more about this adventure in just a few minutes. We've got outdoors news for you, too, including the latest results from a Bassmaster tournament held in Florida and unsettling news about job losses at Cabela's following their merger with Bass Pro. Before we get into all of this, though, We're going to talk about a very different fishery for the next few minutes, squid fishing. It's something you can do off the piers in California and Washington, British Columbia, and there's squid up there in Alaska too. But how do you do it? We've got just the man who knows. His name is Kyle Buchanan. He works with Beau Mac Enterprises, and they make Oturi squid jigs. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
We're talking here at the Washington Sportsman Show in Puyallup, and you've got these squid jigs, and this is really popular with some people, but for other people it's a big mystery. How does one go squid fishing?
First, you need to find a pier, and you need to have plenty of patience, because everybody and their mother is going to want to go out there and get some fresh calamari. Essentially, first step, you're going to want a lighter tackle rod. A light steelhead rod or a trout rod will work just fine. A lot of the veterans and pros are going to want a fly fishing rod, a little lighter, more sensitive tip. Then you're going to go to the store. You're going to get some Oturi squid jigs. Here in Washington, the regs allow you 4 lures, so you can have 4 separate sets of hooks, ranging anywhere from 6 inches in between the jigs to a foot between the jigs. If you're on a pier, you're going to cast it out, say at a 45-degree angle. You're going to let the lures gently flutter down to the bottom, mimicking a wounded bait fish. As soon as you feel a little bit of bottom, reel up, because obviously that rig's going to get shallower and shallower as that angle decreases, and pretty soon those jigs are going to be right below you if you're on a pier. And then essentially you want to jig up from about 3 o'clock to noon and gently let them flutter back down, keeping tension on your line and paying attention to any extra activity on your line, whether it's a slight tug, something that feels not normal.
Here's a question for you. When it comes to jigging for squid, are you actually snagging the squid, or are they actually attracted to the jigs, and are they actually attacking the jig?
That's twofold, because when these schools come in, they're going to be in essentially a giant ball of bait. It's going to be a 20-foot radius with squid all over the place. When they come in, they are going to attack your jig. Now, if you get a squid wrapped around your jig with its tentacles, that means it was attacking your lure. On the off chance you happen to snag one, which will happen from time to time, but it's probably a 20% chance that you're going to snag them if they're really in there hot and heavy, that squid's going to come up sideways because you hooked it right in the shell. Not the shell, but the hood of the squid. And it's going to feel like you got 3 or 4 of these things on when you really only have one, but it's because you got that 8-inch squid hanging sideways, not coming up perpendicular like a pike dive.
Fascinating stuff. So let's talk about what makes a good squid jig, and I guess we'll start with the hooks, because this is not like a crappie jig in any way, shape, or form.
No, it is not. Oturi, we have a 14-point jig hook, and these go out anywhere from 7/8 of an inch to we go to 1 1/8.
When you said a 14-point hook, that means you actually have 14 different barbs at the end of the jig, almost 14 different hooks on one jig.
Correct. You got 14 hooks going in a circle around the bottom of the hook. So essentially picture a basket. A pointy basket is what you got on the end of your jig.
All right, so you got the pointy basket, and then you have the jig itself. And even that is shaped interesting, almost, well, like a ballpoint pen, for lack of a better word, but you've got certain colors, and the colors are attractants. What are the hot colors when it comes to jigging?
You know, every single night you ask a guy on the pier, one guy's going to say blue, one guy's going to say pink, one guy's going to say green, one guy's going to say orange. So it really boils down to, if your neighbor's whacking them dead on pink, and you got a pink jig in your tackle box, you might as well go ahead and throw the pink one on. There's no rhyme or reason, but generally anything that glows, you're going to have good success.
And that was my next question. Your Oturi jigs, are they all UV? Do they all glow?
All UV and all glow.
All right, so now you know the key ingredients that you need for a good squid jig, and you know also how to catch them. Last question for you. How do you like to cook them?
I go ahead and take the tentacles away from the body, keep my hood, get all my guts and cartilage out of it. I like to season up some Italian sausage, throw that in there with some ricotta cheese, put them in a baking dish, throw some red sauce over the top with a little bit of mozzarella, and bake them in the oven just like a fresh manicotti.
Well, I'll tell you what, Kyle. If this whole fishing tackle thing doesn't work out, consider becoming a chef. It sounds like you have got some definite skills there as well. We've got to go, but where can people find the Oturi jig?
Any tackle retailer in the Northwest, all the ways from Alaska to Oregon, mainly Sportsman's Warehouse, Cabela's, Sportco, and most tackle stores up and down the Puget Sound.
It's the Oturi Squid Jig, O-T-O-R-I, made by Beau Mac Enterprises. Pick some up, go to a public pier near you, and get jigging for squid. Thanks for sharing this with us today on America Outdoors Radio.
Thanks for having me.
If you consider yourself a hardcore fisherman who takes pride in being the first person on the water and the last one off, Fish Fighter products were designed for you. Fish Fighter products are used by the top fishing guides in the Northwest because they know having the right equipment is imperative to a successful fishing trip. With our Relentless Series tackle trays, rocket launcher rod racks, and breakaway river anchors, you'll spend more time chasing the fish, not your gear. Designed and built right here in the USA. Gear up at fishfighterproducts.com.
Are you looking to reel in the marketing opportunity of a lifetime? Then set the hook because we've got it right here for you. America Outdoors Radio has sponsorships available, and we offer affordable platforms to reach thousands of listeners interested in fishing, hunting, and the outdoors. Find out more by contacting John Kruse through his website at AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com. That's AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com. Hurry, though. If you wait too long, the big opportunity might just get away. AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com.
Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, a nationwide group working to keep public lands in public hands. We've helped ban the use of drones for hunting. We help repair wildlife corridors and key riparian areas. We speak up against illegal ATV use. We collaborate with elected leaders to keep public lands in public hands. We're Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, with membership in all 50 states and Canada. Please join this dynamic conservation group. Check us out at backcountryhunters.org.
Welcome back to America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Kruse. Have you ever wanted to go to Alaska? There's a couple of ways to do it. If you're after a fishing trip, hunting trip, or just a great wildlife watching and nature trip, you can drive the Alcan Highway through Canada up to Alaska. You can certainly fly in, and that's how most people do it, but there's another way to do it as well. You can travel by boat on a ferry along the Alaska Marine Highway. With us here to tell us more about that is Danielle Doyle. She's a development specialist with the state of Alaska, specializing in this very thing. Danielle, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So Danielle, the starting point for most people traveling to Alaska is Bellingham, Washington. They're going to get on essentially a big ferry boat, and where can they go from there?
Pretty much they can access the whole western coastline of Alaska. We service 35 ports in total, Bellingham and Prince Rupert, British Columbia, as well as over 33 ports in the state of Alaska. So it provides quite a bit of access throughout the western region of the state.
I'm looking at the map here, and frankly, I was very surprised. I knew that these boats went through the Inside Passage and that they went to some of the communities in southeast Alaska. I even knew that they went up towards Valdez, in the central part of Alaska, but I didn't know that you have ferry service all the way out to Dutch Harbor and the Aleutian Islands.
That is correct. We do service the Aleutian chain from Homer out to Kodiak Island and then all the way out to Dutch during the summer months, and that sailing takes place every 2 weeks, May through September.
How many ferry boats does the state of Alaska operate on this marine highway?
Essentially 11. We are kind of in a little bit of a transition with our fleet right now because we're starting to retire some of our older boats, and we actually have 2 new ones under construction and a 3rd one in design. So we like to say 11, but as I say, that's a little bit in transition at this point.
Well, let's go ahead and focus on a trip from Bellingham to start off with. Now, what kind of passengers are coming on board here? Are these people that are looking for a cut-rate cruise ship experience? Are these people that are bringing an RV or a pickup truck to head somewhere in Alaska and maybe do their own hunting or fishing trip? Or are these locals that are just basically commuting to and from the States?
All of the above, John. We really have a diverse group of people that ride the ferry. And, the ferry was created to provide essential service to the roadless communities of Alaska. So we do have a lot of local residents riding. But for those visitors that come to the state, we see everything from people that are just getting on with a backpack that want to just, do that camping adventure to big 40-foot RVs that are being driven on board because people want to be able to access not just the interior roadways, but also all of our beautiful coastal communities. People that do want to do kind of a do-it-yourself cruise so they can stop and stay a little longer in the communities along the way. So we really see a very wide variety.
When it comes to this boat from Bellingham, let's talk about what's available in terms of amenities and the logistics of doing it. So let's say I show up with my RV or I show up with my pickup truck and I want to buy a ticket and go to Alaska.
Absolutely. So all of our ferries, our mainline ferries, are equipped with amenities on board, such as staterooms. So if you will be on board overnight, you can rent a stateroom, although you do not have to. We do also allow people to either pitch a tent on the back deck, or we do have a covered solarium area with outdoor-style lounge chairs where you can just camp with a sleeping bag. So there's food service available on board, and if you don't have a stateroom with a private bathroom suite, you can also access public showers and lockers available on board to stow your things and, of course, take a shower along the way. So there's a different variety of ways that you can travel.
Well, here's another question for you. Let's say, I'm guessing a stateroom is probably a real added expense.
Correct.
So let's talk about, I've got an RV. Can I sleep in my RV and save myself some money?
And that's a very common question, but unfortunately not, because our car decks are actually sealed when we are underway. So it is for us against Coast Guard regulation. So everybody does have to be up on the passenger decks when the vessel's underway. But, if you're traveling with an RV and you want to, rent a cabin, we do request that you do make reservations for those ahead of time. And you will need to know the overall length of your vehicle because our fares are not only based on distance, but with a vehicle, that overall length. So a little pre-planning is always a good thing if you're bringing a vehicle or need a cabin.
You're listening to America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Kruse. We're talking to Danielle Doyle about taking a ferry and exploring the Alaska Marine Highway and all the communities that you can visit along the way. Speaking of those communities, when it comes to ports of call, let's say you're taking that ferry from Bellingham, where does that ferry actually end? Does it end in Juneau or somewhere else? And I'm sure it stops along the way. How long are the ports of call?
Another great question. We have several different ferries. They all run slightly different routes. So you can really, by changing ferries in certain ports, access any of those communities that you might want. However, if you leave from Bellingham, you're going to stop in the community of Ketchikan, Wrangell, Petersburg, Juneau, Haines and Skagway before turning back south to hit all those communities again, as well as Sitka on the southbound. So a lot more communities that we stop in on the ferry opposed to a big boat cruise. So lots of opportunity to really route yourself the way you prefer.
So it sounds like I could stay in several of these places and just catch a different ferry a couple days later. If I'm staying on the same ferry, is it a matter of just load, unload, and you're on your way? I mean, we're not talking about 8 hours on shore like you would with a cruise?
That's correct. Our main goal is we're part of the Department of Transportation, so we're there to transport people. So we pull into a port, we offload, we load again, and then we go. Our schedules can vary a little bit depending on tides and currents in Alaska. We have a very big tidal shift, so we do have to plan for that a little bit. So sometimes a port call can be as short as an hour. Sometimes it can be 4 or 5. It really varies, but when you book your reservation, if there is a particular community that you really want to stop and stay in, you can plan it that way and just disembark the vessel and then stay for a couple of days and then catch the next ferry that's headed the direction you want to go.
This sounds like an absolutely wonderful way to explore Alaska. One other thing I want to talk about is one-way trips. So we've talked Bellingham to Alaska and presumably back, but what about those people who do drive to Alaska on the Alcan Highway and they just don't want to make that long haul back? I got a buddy who just did that and he said it was fun going up, but it was a real drag going back.
Yeah, and we have a lot of people that do that as well, absolutely, because it's a completely different experience driving the interior highway versus taking the ferry to see all of the coastal communities. So a lot of people will combine that driving vacation with either a return trip on the ferry or just utilizing the ferry to get out and see some of those coastal communities, like maybe Kodiak Island, that you would completely miss if you drove both ways. So that's a great way to diversify your trip.
And one other thing we need to talk about here is when it comes to the highway system for the state of Alaska, looking at the map here, it appears to me the marine highway system is much more extensive when it comes to mileage than your actual land-based highway system.
That is correct. A lot of people, first-time travelers to Alaska, don't realize that our interior road system is not extremely all-reaching, and it doesn't extend to a lot of these island communities. So ferry or plane are really the only way to access a lot of the areas in Alaska.
We've got to wrap things up here, but folks, as you've heard, this is a fantastic way to get to Alaska. You are going to spend some money, but it's going to be cheaper than you think, and you're going to be able to have a great do-it-yourself adventure no matter what your destination may be, whether it's a coastal community or whether you're heading inland from there, or if you just want to take a ride back and see some of the coastal communities that you didn't get to see on the drive up. What's a website where folks can find out more?
ferryalaska.com.
That's really easy, folks. ferryalaska.com. And one last question before we go. That ferry from Bellingham up to Skagway and Haines, that's year-round, isn't it?
That is correct. We do have a ferry that departs every Friday evening at 6 p.m., and during the summer we have a secondary ferry that leaves every other Saturday.
There you go. Alaska anytime you want with the state of Alaska on the Marine Highway. Danielle, thanks for telling us about this on America Outdoors Radio.
Great. Thanks, John. We appreciate it.
I'd like to welcome a new sponsor to our show. It's Sportsman's Cove Lodge, and many anglers who have been there will tell you it really is Alaska's best lodge. Sportsman's Cove Lodge sits on a salmon highway full of kings and silvers. There's halibut too, and there are some really big ones. Finally, with decades of experience taking care of customers, Sportsman's Cove Lodge knows how to treat you right from start to finish. Ready to book your trip of a lifetime? Then call Sportsman's Cove Lodge at 800-962-7889. That's 800-962-7889. 800-962-7889 for Sportsman's Cove Lodge. You're back with America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Kruse, and this portion of the show is brought to you by Fish Fighter Products. They make innovative fishing gear for your boat. If you are an angler, you need to check out their website at fishfighterproducts.com. Speaking of fishing, I thought we'd talk a little bit about bass fishing. Not a whole bunch of that going on up in the north, but down south, there are bass to be caught, and one person who's catching them is Steve Kite, the owner of Chattanooga Fishing Guides. Steve, great to have you back on the show.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
So, Steve, your home water is Chickamauga Lake, and you also fish the Tennessee River. How is bass fishing at this time of year in the late winter, early spring? Is it worth a trip, or should we just keep the rod stowed until springtime?
Well, it's weather is critical like it is in many areas, and these Florida bass that have been stocked in here, actually they're a strain of Florida bass called an F2, and they have never felt this cold of water. I mean, they've been here for 8 or 9 years, and our normal winters up till this winter, the water's been staying 45 to maybe more on the upper side toward 50. This winter, we went all the way down to 38. There were bays and coves freezing over that we haven't seen frozen for years. So that's really not a big dent in the fishing down here as far as numbers especially. So we're still catching a few. To answer the question, is the trip worth it? Probably not till we recover from this last major cold front. We're suffering gin clear water, which the Tennessee River is not used to. So there's quite a few conditions that are making it a little bit tough.
Folks, let me introduce you to an honest fishing guide. His name is Steve Kite, and he's one of the few people who will tell you it's not a good time to go fishing. So, Steve, I appreciate that. And, boy, you're right. I don't think I've ever caught a bass in 38-degree water. But let's talk about the fact it is going to warm up a little bit. So let's talk about catching these bass, when that water temperature hits the 40s, what kind of tactics, what kind of techniques do you like to use to get some of those big largemouth bass to strike?
We still got some winter coming, so I would still stick with regular wintertime baits that can produce not only giant bass, but it also can produce really good numbers. And that would be your Alabama rig. And in Tennessee, they are pretty strict. And in Tennessee, you can have only 3 hooks on an Alabama rig. Jerkbait has had some good years in the past. It really hasn't performed well this year. Why, I don't know. Where single swim bait is usually not that good during the wintertime, this year it's been excellent. And so those would probably be my 3 choices, would be your Alabama rig, your jerkbait, and a single swim bait. The Shadowlicious, 4-inch Shadowlicious has been working really well. The fish seem to have been, what fish are biting are hitting in short periods of time. They may come up and feed for 15 minutes and they're gone. And so it's really difficult to be in the right place at the right time and catch these bass right now.
I'm dating myself here in terms of my tactics, but my go-to first of the year lure to use when I'm fishing up in these northern waters in March is a big weedless jig with a whole bunch of skirt on it and a grub below it, and have that thing slowly float down in the brush. Does that work down south too this time of year?
You know, this time of year, if you landed right on one's head and it was hungry, he's probably going to eat it. But these fish are so shad-oriented. Is that these big, huge schools of shad that their metabolism gets slowed down by cold water, and it makes them, they can just barely swim. And we have a lot of them die, but the ones that survive are just moving so slow that these fish, I mean, it's just like an unguarded buffet. Eat all you want, anytime you want. I mean, you got to really be there at the right time, and when they feed hard in 15 minutes in this cold water, it's just a long time before they bite again. And you know, some of the smaller, you can go down to finesse stuff, like instead of your great big jig, you can drop down to like an 1/8-ounce hair jig. Ned rig's producing a few fish. You hear a little bit about the Ned rig. Or anybody that really gets down and finesse fishes for them with light line, spinning rods, you're going to get more bites when it's tough doing that.
You're listening to America Outdoors Radio. We're talking to Steve Kite, the owner of Chattanooga Fishing Guides in Tennessee, about catching some of those wintertime bass that have been hard to catch as of late. We've been talking about largemouth bass, Steve. What about smallmouth bass? Is it any different for them, or are they even catchable this time of year?
Well, you know, normally you can take live bait and you can just have just a super day out here catching smallmouth. They are a little bit harder to catch. There's not quite as many of them. But we've got giant smallmouth down here. I mean, it barely raises an eyebrow when you're talking about a 6, 7, 8 pounder usually, you know, turns some heads. So those guys are big down here. They're normally this time of year you have better success below the dams. But I have seen them up here in the lake. If you get the right water temperature, you certainly can catch some big ones.
So, Steve, bass has been tough in your neck of the woods, but I guess if the bass is tough, there's always crappie. Is that an option instead?
Yes, they have been very slow. There was a crappie tournament about 10 days ago on the weekend, and 2 crappie won it, believe it or not.
Okay, that's slow.
And the guy that won it is slow, and the guy that won it also got, of course he had to because he only had the 2 fish, but he got big crappie and small crappie and won the tournament. So, but they were having to break ice to get even launch and all that kind of stuff back then. And I'm sure the water yesterday appeared to be warming some. I still did not see any fish activity whatsoever. But the pictures on electronics started looking a little bit better, where you see some fish up moving around a little bit, where they have moved from the deeper water on up to the edge of the ledges. And a couple places looked like they were starting to maybe move back into some bigger bays and coves again.
All right. Well, Steve, I really appreciate the honest fishing report. I know it's going to get better as we move from February into March and April. Do you have openings during this latter part of February and into March timeframe if folks want to book a trip with you?
Yes, weather's a big factor. Usually January and February, we usually book 8 or 10 trips out of that month. And so there's usually days available, especially during the week. As the year goes on, I would suggest if you're going to come to Chickamauga, try to plan your trip where you do get to fish during the weekdays. The weekends are just horrendous as far as pressure, boat ramp crowds, trying to find a place to fish, other recreational boat traffic. So a weekday is not going to be perfect, but it's certainly going to make your trip a little better as far as crowd-wise.
And there's a reason it's so crowded, folks. Chickamauga is one of the most popular bass lakes in the entire country, and it is going to get better. As Steve told you, it's tough right now in the dead of winter, but it's going to get better. And if you're listening to Nooga Radio 92.7 in the Chattanooga area, or if your travels are taking you to Chattanooga and you want to go bass fishing, here's the website to go to book a trip with Steve. It's ChattanoogaFishingGuides.com. Again, ChattanoogaFishingGuides.com. Steve's been doing this a long time, and as you just heard, he knows his stuff, and he's going to give you an honest assessment of your chances on the water. The website, one more time, ChattanoogaFishingGuides.com. Steve, thanks for spending some time with us today on America Outdoors Radio.
Glad to have done it, and I really enjoy this, and call me back anytime.
If you consider yourself a hardcore fisherman who takes pride in being the first person on the water and the last one off, Fish Fighter products were designed for you. We make products for the relentless fishermen who know that big fish are caught by those who put in the work. With our Relentless Series tackle trays, rocket launcher rod racks, and breakaway river anchors, you'll spend more time chasing the fish, not your gear. Designed and built right here in the USA, Fish Fighter products won't let you down. Gear up at fishfighterproducts.com.
Where can you find 4 rivers, 3 great fisheries, 2 majestic mountains, and 1 fantastic adventure all year round? Sensational The Dalles. Active community, authentic food, and great beer. ExploreTheDalles.com. Come and create your own adventure, and maybe even you can hook a river monster in the Dalles.
I'd like to welcome a new sponsor to our show. It's Sportsman's Cove Lodge, and many anglers who have been there will tell you it really is Alaska's best lodge. Sportsman's Cove Lodge sits on a salmon highway full of kings and silvers. There's halibut too, and there are some really big ones. Finally, with decades of experience taking care of customers, Sportsman's Cove Lodge knows how to treat you right from start to finish. Ready to book your trip of a lifetime? Then call Sportsman's Cove Lodge at 800-962-7889. That's 800-962-7889. 800-962-7889 for Sportsman's Cove Lodge.
Are you ready for your best of the West affordable summer vacation? Hello, I'm Mark Hemstreet, owner of Shiloh Inns. Many of the big hotel chains will have hidden extra fees for things like parking, internet, so-called resort fees, and lots more. The list is as long as it is sneaky. But at Shiloh Inns and Suites Hotels, there are no hidden fees. Shiloh amenities are all free, like Shiloh's spacious pools and spas, steam and sauna rooms, fully equipped fitness centers, and even the kids stay free. And don't forget that Shiloh Inns also provide a free continental or full hot delicious breakfast at most Shiloh Inns. Now that's affordable excellence. For reservations, call 1-800-222-2244 or visit our website at shilohins.com. Smoke-free and dog-friendly Shiloh Inns, American family-owned and proud of it.
Looking to reel in the marketing opportunity of a lifetime? Then set the hook because we've got it right here. America Outdoors Radio has sponsorships available, and we offer an affordable platform to reach thousands of listeners interested in fishing, hunting, and the outdoors. Find out more by contacting host John Kruse through his website at AmericanOutdoorsRadio.com. That's AmericanOutdoorsRadio.com. But hurry, if you wait too long, this big opportunity might just get away. That's AmericanOutdoorsRadio.com.
Next on America Outdoors Radio, I've got a question for you. Do you own a canoe or a kayak? Do you have problems getting it up on top of that car or the pickup truck? Let's be honest. A lot of canoes and kayaks, they ought to be light, but they're not. They're downright heavy. Well, guess what? There's a brand new kayak coming out that's lighter than any kayak you've ever heard of before. With us here to tell you more about it is Michael Duffy, one of the founders of Up the Creek Paddle Works out of Rochester, New York, and they are launching a Kickstarter campaign for a new lightweight fishing kayak they have called the Outcast. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Hey, John, thank you, and we're excited to be on the show.
So you're launching this Kickstarter campaign to roll out this new ultra lightweight fishing kayak. And again, this really speaks to me as a guy who has to load and unload his own aluminum boat, canoe, or kayak by myself because my kid's gone off to college and he's left me on my own. So let's start off with the specs. What kind of kayak is this in terms of a sit inside or sit on top?
This is a sit-on-top fishing kayak. It's 12 feet, 6 inches long. It's 29.5 inches wide, and it weighs, we have two versions. We have a carbon version that is sub 30 pounds, probably at all outfitted will be about 28 pounds, and we have a fiberglass Outcast that's going to be under 35 pounds.
Michael, this is amazing to me. I mean, you and I both know that most kayaks out on the market right now require two people to haul them, or you've got to have one of those kayak carts or sometimes even a boat trailer to haul a kayak because they weigh so much. How are you lightening the load to make it so light for one person to handle a kayak on their own?
Well, John, be candid. In America, there's no composite fishing kayaks made. There's none. We'll be the only boat out there. There's plastic rotor molded and there's thermoplastic. The thermoplastic boats, the lightest boats, are in the 50-pound range, and we think they exaggerate maybe just a tad on that. And most of the thermoplastic boats are 70 pounds. So really the secret here is aerospace fabrics. And also the two partnerships that formed Up the Creek. One is one of the top design companies in the country, and we own Lendl Paddles, a 50-year-old paddle company started in Scotland. So you've got people that know composites inside and out. So we're using good, incredible mold designs, process know-how in composites. We've been doing it for 15 years in different markets. And, to be honest, we're using aerospace fabrics that give you incredible lightweight, but also at the same time, incredible strength.
That's my next question, Michael. I understand it's lightweight, but I'm concerned about how sturdy and rugged it is. Is it really going to hold up?
What we did, John, we're guys, like I said, our backgrounds are, we're outdoorsmen. I'm a surfer kayak. I live on the water and up in the western New York, right on Lake Ontario. So we know what beating boats take. So at the end of the day, carbon is one of the strongest materials out there, but we married our carbon and our glass boats to a new material. It's an Inegra material. That's a polyolefin and a basalt, and it gives you unbelievable lightweight, but at the same time, a very resilient, what I would call toughness. So married with carbon, so you've got the incredible strength, but then you've also got that toughness. And we literally took a year, John. We've been down every river in New York State. We're on the lakes. We've been on the tidal pools. We've fished Cape Cod. So we've tried to break the boats, and we just can't. Again, we're not selling these boats as a whitewater boat, but for fishermen out there, they're fishing, moderate rivers, as long as it's not a class 4 or 3 river, and the guys that are just every day on the ocean. And for the guys on the lakes, this boat will last them 20-plus years.
Another question for you. I've been on fishing kayaks, and a lot of them are very wide, but that means they paddle really slow, and they handle, in terms of maneuverability, well, right up there with a garbage scow. How about the fishing kayaks you have? It sounds like yours are a lot narrower at 29 inches.
That was one of the things, John. We're one of these groups. If we couldn't offer a real change, then why bother? And one of the things, I don't want to say bad things about our competition, but one of the things that I found as frustrating as you is the boats were slow, and turning them, you can turn the Nimitz, the USS Nimitz, quicker than you can on some of these kayaks. So what we did is we realized we wanted a boat that was maybe not quite touring fast. I mean, it's your strict touring boats, but we wanted a boat that could be flicked around with one paddle stroke and that could hold its own with even some of the shorter touring boats. And that's what you've got. And one of the things we did for stability, John, so without affecting performance, is our sit on top, unlike so many of these other boats, our deck literally sits on our hull. So your center of gravity, the boat, you can't tip this boat over. The last year we've said, go ahead and try. We even had one fisherman that was able to tip our boat. So again, you don't need a boat that's, 36, 37, 38 inches, that no matter who designs it, you're not going to get that boat to turn. And the other thing is we designed our hull. We did so much fluid dynamics testing on our hull that we didn't rest until we had a boat that really was touring boat speed. So again, you got a fishing boat flicking around with one paddle stroke and one that can literally, you can see bursts of 5 knots with this boat. And you can maintain a 3.5 knot, 4 knot, all day long at a comfortable stroke.
Michael, we're running short on time, but the Kickstarter campaign is kicking off February 15th, and I know a lot of folks listening today are wondering, how do I contribute? How do I get my hands on one of these Outcast kayaks from Up the Creek Paddleworks?
We are doing the Kickstarter starting the 15th, so it'll be a month-long campaign. We've got some great partners. We've got Scotty, the fixture folks, and we've got Douglas Outdoors. There's going to be a 90,000 email blast going out, but our website is also upthecreekpaddleworks.com, and it'll have FAQs, John. It'll have everything you need to know. We're also going to be giving away a Douglas spin rod with every boat that goes out the door. That's a $200 value as well.
That's upthecreekpaddleworks.com, folks. Upthecreekpaddleworks.com. That's the place to go to find the lightest weight fishing kayak you've ever heard of. And as you just heard, a very maneuverable one and a sturdy one, too. It's the Outcast kayak from Up the Creek Paddleworks. Check it out. This might be your new favorite fishing kayak. Michael, thanks for telling us all about this on America Outdoors Radio.
Thank you, and we're just huge fans of the show, so a million thanks.
A couple of quick outdoors news stories to share with you. The first one comes from Cabela's, where the axes are quietly swinging at stores around the nation as Bass Pro Shops, who bought up Cabela's, begins to consolidate and make changes. Marketing and event managers at Cabela stores were let go the 1st of February, and salesmen working at Cabela stores selling boats were told their salaries were going to be drastically reduced from what they've been accustomed to. How drastic? Well, let's just say those Cabela's boat salesmen and women won't be earning commissions anymore, and they'll be making about the same as any other worker in the store. Now, that's a pay cut many of these workers just can't afford to take. Meanwhile, in Sidney, Nebraska, the headquarters for Cabela's, the corporate staff is down from a high of 2,000 workers to an estimated 500 and will probably get smaller than that as this prairie town of 6,800 people comes to grips with the fact that the biggest employer in town by far is truly a shadow of what it used to be after their merger with Bass Pro. In brighter news, we can tell you Bobby Lane clinched a wire-to-wire win at the Bassmaster Open on the Kissimmee chain of lakes in Florida last weekend. Bobby Lane's from Lakeland, Florida, and used his home water knowledge to dominate this wire-to-wire win at the first Bass Pro Shops Bassmaster Eastern Open at Big Lake Tahoe Marina with a 3-day total of 60 pounds. He took a 10.5-pound lead on day one with a massive limit of 31 pounds, 7 ounces, and there was no catching him after that. This was Lane's first big win since a 2009 Elite Series event on Kentucky Lake, and he took home a check for nearly $53,000. We've got to wrap things up, but if you're in the Pacific Northwest, be sure to drop by the Pacific Northwest Sportsman Show this weekend. It runs through Sunday at the Expo Center in Portland. We'll be there and would love to chat with you. And if you're on the web, a few sites to check out. AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com is our website. You can hear us on TalkAmericaRadio.us Saturday mornings at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're on Facebook. Again, America Outdoors Radio is the place to go, and use that to find us on Podbean too, and download the app so you can hear us on the go. We're also on YouTube, and that channel is Northwestern Outdoors, one word there. I do hope that you're blessed in the week ahead. We'll be back next weekend with another hour of fishing, hunting, and the shooting sports from all over our great nation. Until then, I hope you get outside, and do remember, it's your country and your outdoors.